Good evening. This is a Tuesday, June 24, 2025 meeting of the Town of South Windsor Planning and Zoning Commission. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So first of all, I'd like to welcome a new regular member who's been an alternate, Despina Dugansky. And you've created a vacancy in the alternate, so I don't know how we're going to deal with that. So again, congratulations, and I think you've been doing really great as an alternate. I'm going to seat Commissioner Capchunos for Commissioner Cavanero. And I think we're ready to proceed with the reading of the announcement for the public hearings.
Notice is hereby given that there will be a public hearing on Tuesday, June 24th, 2025 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall to consider the following. Number one, application 25-23P, 235 Pleasant Valley Road, LLC, zone change. This is a request for a zone change of 3.9 acres from A40 residential zone to general commercial zone for properties located at 235 and 245 Pleasant Valley Road. Number two, PZC sponsored amendment for minor corrections, updates, and clarification throughout the entirety of the zoning regulations. Proposed changes include general requirements, residential and commercial use tables, site development requirements including traffic, drainage, landscaping, and lighting, definitions, and appendices. Copies of the application are on file in the Office of the Town Clerk and/or the Planning Department and online at www.southwindsor-ct.gov. At this hearing, interested persons may be heard, and written comments by the public will be received by mail or email. Persons who may require an accommodation can contact staff at 860-644-2511, extension 2329. Stephen Wagner, Chair, Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the way we do public hearings is first the applicant comes up and presents their case as much as they want to present. We don't ask them any questions. We then get comments from the staff, and finally we listen to the members of the public who may have comments, pro or con, or just questions. Finally, we listen to the commissioners if they have any questions or comments. And once everybody's happy with the public hearing, we close the public hearing, and then we would act on that hopefully later tonight. So now is the applicant for 2523 here, or? Yes, okay. So we'll hear their presentation. Yeah, please sign in and introduce yourself.
Yes, I am Dave Fromson.
Could you bring the mic closer to your face? Yeah, thank you.
I am Dave Fromson of 52 Oakwood Drive here in South Windsor. I'm tonight representing 235 Pleasant Valley LLC and 245 Pleasant Valley LLC. And Michelle Gregorian, who is the sole member of these LLCs. Michelle had inherited this property from her dad, and with the inheritance came some zoning violations. So last May, I believe, we asked for a temporary and conditional permit, which we were approved of, and that was our first phase of trying to decide what we're going to do with this property and how to do it. The zone, we have two objectives that we're asking for the zoning change for. First is that we can position the property so we be able to do some economic development with it. Presently as a residential zone, our hands are kind of tied. Plus, we have an industrial company that has been present there for decades, that we've been trying to work with the town to try to create an environment for they could continue doing business on the property. So a zoning change is definitely necessary for that to occur. Also, if you take a look at the maps that were supplied, this property is anywhere from 75, 80% bordered by other properties that are zoned general commercial. So it seems very seamless to me that we could get incorporated into that whole economic corner that exists on Pleasant Valley and Route 5. To my understanding, there is only one property, which is 219 Pleasant Valley, which is the only residential piece of property that actually borders our property. 209 is a cornfield, and 183 Pleasant Valley is a land trust. So I think our impact is very minimal by creating this zone change. And that's basically our goals and what we're trying to do here.
All right, thank you. Anyone else from your team want to?
I'm sorry?
Is anyone else from your team going to speak?
No.
Okay. In that case, we'll listen to our Director of Planning, Michelle Leip, or Assistant Planner, Justin Russo.
Thank you. So this is a request for a zone change of 3.9 acres from A40 residential zone to general commercial zone for properties located at 235 and 245 Pleasant Valley Road. 245 Pleasant Valley Road currently contains an existing residence, while 235 Pleasant Valley Road, as the applicant explained, contains a concrete business, which was approved for a 2-year temporary and conditional permit on May 28th, 2024. With this zone change, if it were approved, the existing residence can remain until a site plan with a change of use is submitted, at which point it shall either be removed or conform with our regulations for residential uses in the general commercial zone. It should be noted that the concrete business can only operate under the temporary and conditional permit in the A40 or general commercial. So that specific use is a special exception in the industrial zone. The minimum lot size for general commercial zones is 30,000 square feet. Lot frontage is 100 feet. Lot depth is 150 feet. For 245 Pleasant Valley Road, to host a general commercial use, it will require a lot line adjustment to increase the lot size. Both properties could also be combined. Current uses surrounding this site include A40 residential to the north and west, general commercial to the north, east, and south, and then industrial uses across John Fitch Boulevard and then further south beyond that. If this zone change is approved, any development on this site will require a 50-foot buffer in addition to the building setbacks due to the adjoining A40 residentially zoned properties. The buffer shall comply with section 6.2.4 of our regulations.
Excuse me, Mr. Thompson, you're going to have a seat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
This application is subject to the review criteria of section 8.3 of our zoning regulations, which states that the commission shall take into account the various factors favorable and unfavorable to such a change, including but not limited to the goals and objectives and recommendations of the POCD, the purposes of zoning of these regulations, changes that have taken place in the rate and pattern of development and land use within the town and adjoining communities, the supply of land available in the present and proposed zone, the physical suitability of the land for the proposed zone, the impact on the capacity of the present and proposed utilities, streets, drainage systems, and other improvements, the general character and zoning of the neighborhood, impacts on the surrounding area, traffic congestion impacts, the impact on surrounding property values, the environmental impacts, the health and general welfare of the community, neighborhood acceptance weighed against community needs, and the protection of historic factors. The applicant's narrative states that the properties are currently underutilized, as described in their presentation, and acknowledges that the zone change aligns with the economic growth potential indicated in our POCD. Some uses that they had envisioned in their narrative include retail, office space, mixed-use development, all of which are permissible in our general commercial zone. Our plan of conservation and development identifies this area of town as a cross-street node, which is envisioned to provide supportive commercial services to the Route 5 corridor's employment base. some envisioned uses in our POCD would be small-scale retail, restaurants, and other such commercial uses. Pedestrian connections at this node are desirable, such as sidewalks, crosswalks, things of that nature. If the zone change is approved, these properties would be able to support all of the general commercial uses outlined in Table 4.1.1A of our zoning regulations. A traffic impact statement has been prepared by Jones Engineering LLC to address the traffic impacts associated with the proposed zone change for these properties. Based on the information provided, such as unobstructed sightlines eastward and westward, there appear to be no adverse traffic impacts anticipated. Staff has coordinated with the Superintendent of Pollution Control, Tony Manfrey, and there are no concerns with this zone change from a sewer connection standpoint, but it should be noted that a monitoring manhole and access easement may be required at the time of connection. And finally, if this application is approved, the Commission shall state on the record that the zone change has been found to be consistent with the Plan of Conservation and Development. And the Planning Department has no additional comments.
Okay, did we get input from CROG on it?
For this type of application.
Okay. All right, so we now would have comments from members of the public. Questions, comments, concerns? Anybody wish to speak? Seeing and hearing none, we can move on to commissioners. Commissioner Viteri.
I have no questions.
Okay. Commissioner Bernstein.
You can, we're going to have a little give and take. So I understand that this application is a zone change, but clearly you have a vision for what you want to do with this property.
I think the term clearly is not appropriate at this point. We're still trying to figure out what we're trying to do. This is like phase 2 in our process. We've been approached by a number of people, Mario at Dunkin' Donuts, Andrew at South Windsor Arena, so there's been interest in the property outside of us. But in all these conversations was that we needed to get the property positioned correctly to have these conversations. So what our true end goal is, I could not honestly tell you today. We're kind of new to this game. Sure. We're learning, and we're trying to determine what we want to do with it and what we can do with it.
So your narrative specifies a couple different types of commercial ventures. So they would be an idea of the kinds of things you're thinking about at this point.
Correct. Another suggestion that was given to us was self-storage units.
Okay.
This is a flat piece of land, no water, no trees. It's just open land. It just seems like a very suitable piece of development that could happen. So we're kind of open to what could actually be the final end over there.
So we've had, and this is just asking your opinion, we've had other developers come in and talk to us who are interested in developing residential. Mm-hmm. And we have questioned them in some cases with the thought process that we would prefer commercial on the land that they were talking about. And they were trying to tell us that there isn't a real market for commercial in this town, that we're maxed out on commercial. I'm guessing you disagree.
I do disagree.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. On a number of fronts, really, with this piece of land, its location, its size, I mean, right to Route 5, to the highways, and we're already kind of grouped into this industrial little sector of Route 5 and Pleasant Valley. And I'm seeing along Route 5, these intersections are being developed economically, and I think we fit right into that pattern.
So you probably can't answer this, but I'm going to ask it anyway just because I'm curious. Again, you guys have given some thought to the type of things. So 245 Pleasant Valley is a house, it's a resident.
Correct.
Would that be leveled?
Possibly, yes.
The concrete business, that goes away?
Our end goal is hopefully no.
Okay,
When this all started was because of the concrete company, and the conversations was, let's try to position the property and do what's necessary that we could keep them operating. This gentleman's been there way before our time. He's been there for decades. And, you know, we'd like to do the best we can to, you know, work with him and make it all work out for
the
everybody.
farmland, I think you said it was a cornfield,
One of our adjacent properties is a cornfield.
so that gets developed, or does that stay?
No, that's not ours.
Oh, it's not,
No,
okay.
no, so I was just making reference to.
That's adjacent,
Yes,
so-
exactly, exactly. That most of our border properties are already zoned commercial. And there's just 3 properties that are not. One's a farm, one's a land preserve, and one's a resident.
That's all I have, thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Dexter.
I just had a follow-up question to the comment about the temporary and conditional permit that the cement company has now. Is that something that would stay in place, or if they stick around?
I think that's probably the best way to handle it. I mean, if they've been there a long time, you know, sooner or later, someone is going to age out of it, right? And I don't think it would be recommended to go industrial zone, and that's what you would need for that to be a permitted use.
Right.
But if it can be incorporated into any site design, and you're comfortable keeping it as a temporary and conditional permit, you know, there have been ones that, as we'll hear later on tonight, have been around for a while. Eventually, they'll go away. Again, I think it's a better idea than rezoning any portion of that industrial.
Okay. And we haven't received any letters from abutters or the public on this? I didn't see any, so nothing came in? Okay. All right, that's it.
Commissioner Baginski.
No comments.
Commissioner Kupchunas. No comments. And I had 2 questions, both of which have been answered, so. Are
I
there
just
any
want to
other-
check, did you ask for comments from the public? I don't remember.
I didn't understand. Well. Yes, I did, yes. So is there any reason to hold the public hearing open? Mr. Thompson?
I'm sorry? No.
Okay. I'll move to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing at 7:17?
Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, we will undoubtedly act on this later in the meeting. So we now move on to PGC-sponsored amendment related to many different things, kind of a catch-all, catch-up kind of thing. Maybe the best thing is, Michelle, if you could kind of briefly skim through this and tell us what we're trying to do so the public can understand.
Okay, thank you. So as mentioned, these are some PZC-sponsored amendments dealing with several sections of the regulations. I'm just going to start through. We did give you out a document that you should have had when we went through our work session. I'm going to kind of run through the different sections just briefly. So we were clarifying alcoholic beverages, adding a definition to be in the regulations, which we currently didn't have, and we were taking away any requirement for separating distances, just because it's kind of outdated in today's use of it. We were just clarifying that fencing can happen on more than commercial and industrial sites. Going to our use table, under the residential use table, we were eliminating something about hospital sanitariums related to mental, alcoholic, and drug cases. We were eliminating the exception to it, I should say, and crossing that out. We were adding into, I think that's the only change in the residential use table. We were eliminating section, under 3.12, the very last section, which really talks about a habitable floor area, which is something we no longer have in our regulation. We don't regulate floor area any longer, so we're eliminating that section. Under the accessory apartment section, under 3.2.3, we are clarifying that it's only one accessory apartment per single-family lot, right? This question has come up. Under our multifamily zone, clarifying some parking and access ways about the location of the handicap spaces, where they're located, talking about the commission requiring a second point of entrance and/or egress. We also are adding something in that section related to bus shelters, that if there's not public transit available at the time of an application, the commission may require a future bus shelter be placed on site once public transit's available. Under our pedestrian bicycle circulation section, we are just adding some language for putting a bicycle storage unit. Again, I'm in the multifamily section. We are sending the multifamily section to the pedestrian bicycle accommodation section of the regulations to make sure that any multifamily developments come in with, we have requirements for bike racks and things like that, depending on unit counts. So we are making that reference. Going under the commercial and industrial zone use table, a couple things we are doing. Under the residential section of this, we are eliminating duplexes as being an allowed use in the general commercial zone. We were also clarifying that an existing house in an industrial zone could be used by either the owner or a caretaker, or you could request a special exception. No new construction of housing can occur in the industrial zone on an industrial lot. So that is a clarification, or I should change the regulation. We are adding under the public and semi-public category religious institutions in all of our zones by special exception. That again is something that is under federal law, that we really need to treat church institutions like any other kind of place of assembly. And we do allow places of assembly in other zones, so that's the reason we're including that. Again, just some clarifications of the regulations, some duplication. We had automotive fuel that we're eliminating just because it's addressed otherwhere in the regulations. We're adding banquet facility in as a use, since it is a use in town, and we have approved a couple of those, putting that into the use table. We're adding something into the industrial zone, which is what we're calling convenience retail on a small scale, and this is limited to buildings along the Route 5 corridor that are 2,500 square feet or less to be able to be used as a retail convenience type store. I think that's pretty much the changes in the use table, other than we're clarifying where wholesale sales and inventory can be located. Under the Buckland Gateway Zone, I should comment too that we're clarifying tattoo parlors in the use table. We used to call them out separately as a different type of use. We're putting them in the same kind of category as any other hairdresser or any other similar personal service type use, and we're also clarifying the definition related to that as well. So moving on into the Buckland Gateway Zone, we're doing similar things. We're eliminating the fact that tattoo establishments were prohibited, so we would be taking that out. We're also addressing adult-oriented establishments. We're sending it to a section of the regulations. Under the I-291 zone, we're kind of clarifying casinos and gaming centers, taking out arcades, things that again are not typically what we see in today's regulations. Clarifying adult-oriented in that section, sending again to another section of the regulations. Under the industrial zone, we are calling on under the rail section that we're adding a statement that the commission may also require information to ensure that minimal disruption to the public roads, and this is related to rails that are being introduced with some of our projects we're seeing. Under the traffic requirements section, this is actually a section we adopted in another part of the regulations. We're just reiterating it under the site plan section, so it's more appropriate located. I'm going to hold off on buffers or landscaping for a second and defer to Justin. I just want to finish my part, which really is related to the appendixes. So what we did in the appendices is we just put more references as to the years that certain things applied, just again to make it clear. As Justin and I were talking earlier, as time goes on and we change our regulations, it's really kind of important to have some zoning to go back to know when people want to put up a shed or things, what kind of setbacks that regulation had created. So the appendix have really become very important to kind of store the old regulations for future references. So this helps clarify that a little bit. And I'll let Justin speak to the buffer and landscaping.
So as you probably remember, the landscaping revisions were revised to prioritize using native plant species. Since we last spoke, I received some feedback from a consultant, and I'm looking to make some changes to my recommendation would be to make some changes to that. The buffer being that what we recommend to use plant species that are native to our area to the northeast, but accepts plant species that are native to the United States and also non-native exotic species with the, provided that they are not on the invasive species list that's put forth by the Connecticut Invasive Plants Working Group. So that's one item. And I received other feedback pertaining to a lot of different things, but I guess primarily the feasibility of using only native species on site for certain projects. So with that in mind, my recommendation would be that in these regulations, we recommend that plant species should be native to the Northeast, but wherever is feasible. So the last thing that I'd like to do is make it difficult on consultants to do their work, provide their clients with, a project that works for them and, is material that's easily sourced, so on and so forth. So just wanted to, touch on that. So really, not being so strict in that. We have the recommendation that it should be native, but being flexible in that manner. So that's a big part of the landscaping revisions there. The lighting regulations, as we talked about, that would be really prioritizing dark sky compliance, changing the color temperatures of bulbs, 3000K, and also controlling light in a way that we're not lighting things unnecessarily. We're using dimmers and timers and sensors, hopefully to save the applicant or the owner of the property some money in their electric bill. So just being a little bit more conscientious about that. There were some revisions to the buffer regulations, again, touching on the native plant species, but like I said, just a recommendation using native, and then in areas feasible, not creating buffers that are impassable to wildlife, with the understanding that sometimes sites do need to provide a buffer, whether it's a fence or something to protect goods that they have on site. There's things of sensitive nature out there, so just given some flexibility there. The next item would be something that came in for section 6.6.5, the storm drainage. We spoke about that last time, and this was put together by John Hennell in the engineering department, professional engineer. This talked a lot about stormwater management systems, being in accordance with the Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual. There were some questions that this commission had raised just about, related to peak flow rate and whether the year storms, the design storms that they had outlined, some questions related to that. So John had put together a revision saying, essentially less than or equal to provisions were added throughout. So just to provide some clarification to your questions and give a little bit of a buffer there with that language. That was really the majority of it for landscaping, lighting.
We did submit this to CROG as required, and we did get back correspondence from them with a finding. This is dated June 10th. The staff of Regional Planning Commission has reviewed the zoning referral, finds no apparent conflict with regional plans and policy or the concerns of neighboring towns.
Okay, thank you. We ask if there are comments from members of the public. Anybody from the public who would like to either comment on this or go ahead. Please introduce yourself and sign in.
Okay.
I don't know if what you said changes, if I need to read all this.
entirely up to you. It's your call.
Hi, my name is Barbara Schmidt. You might know me from projects related to design professionals here in South Windsor. I'm a licensed landscape architect in Connecticut, and I've been a landscape architect since 2004. And before DPI, I had my own landscape install, design, build business for over 13 years, and I've worked a lot with licensed arborists as well, and did classes for tree health and disease and pest control. And like Justin already sort of went over the natives and he's being amenable to some of the changes to allow suggestions of native plants and not a requirement of native plants. And the last we spoke, it was just about the buffers, that we were gonna have this relaxation of these natives to northeastern United States. So I put together this list because I know a lot of people don't really know where the plants are native from. So I took my plant list that I've been developing over many years and I added a natives column. I didn't include the native plants because they have their own specific list. So this list that I included is all the, is a description of a lot of popular non-native plants that either have, you know, they don't harm the landscape, they don't displace natives, and they're non-invasive. And I think that a lot of the chat about natives is great, and I fully support encouraging natives in the landscape. The statement starts off discussing, I might as well just read it. The regulation change for discussion is regarding the plant materials updated requiring all native plantings or native varieties for all sections of the landscape requirements. We fully support the regulations update to exclude invasive species and to require natives and variety of natives as a requirement of the general landscape standards. However, in consideration of many useful non-native species that currently exist within the fabric of our landscapes that do provide ecological benefit without harm or displacement of natives, we would like to suggest that the native plant species and varieties remain encouraged, but not a requirement that would exclude non-native species. Then I mentioned the specific sections. There was a lot of native talk throughout these sections, but the general landscape standards, design standards, buffers, and parking lots is what I'm specifically concerned about for the native requirement. And in regard to evergreen buffer trees, the Norway spruce is a tree native to Europe, is a common and well-established tree in Connecticut. It's fast-growing, hardy, low maintenance, high ecological value, and has a very attractive pyramidal shape with pendulous branches. It's such a part of our current landscape. The species is what we use for the Rockefeller Christmas tree every year. It's not only a favorite specimen, but also a valuable buffer tree. Colorado blue spruce is a favorite buffer evergreen and is native to central United States. Not the Northeast. The Colorado blue spruce brings a nice color contrast, low maintenance, hardy, provides food and shelter for wildlife with its dense branching. Another buffer shade tolerant broadleaf evergreen shrub is native to mountainous regions near Japan and is thriving in all our Connecticut landscapes is the Japanese Andromeda, also known as lily of the valley shrub. Attractive shrub with color contrasting new growth, is hardy, low maintenance, thrives in sun or shade, and is a pollinator source with abundant flowers in the spring. Also in this category is varieties of holly that are also tolerant of shade and are also very hardy but are native to China. These shrubby hollies also provide ecological value with berries during winter and shelter for wildlife. They're deer resistant and provide a thick buffer with year-round interest. When it comes to buffers in general site landscapes, the panicled hydrangea is popular varieties named Limelight, Bobo, Strawberry Sundae. They're a favorite and core feature of many landscape designs, attractive landscape designs. They're easily maintained since they grow on new growth and can be cut back in spring to maintain a nice form. Drought tolerant, cold hardy, and they do not displace natives. The panicled hydrangea is a haven for pollinators with flower clusters that attract bees, butterflies, and other beneficial insects. Our landscapes from the end of summer into fall, as you've all seen, it's filled with these panicled hydrangeas that are, very valuable in winter, and our landscapes would be lacking without these blooms and the other hydrangeas that aren't native. Some other favorite non-native plants that include but are not limited to boxwoods, the Japanese holly, there's more than one Japanese holly type, but the Ilex crenata is this beautiful little 3x3 shrub, maybe not even that high, and it's wonderful foundations, signs along borders. So, and then the Hinoki cypress, these beautiful Chamaecyparis varieties, we wouldn't be able to allow any of those as an evergreen specimen. They have these beautiful specimens. They're much like, I'd say classier than the average arborvitae. They have the yellow tint. It can be really cool. Japanese Ilkova tree, which was removed from the list of recommended plantings, which is fine. But it's also a very popular parking lot tree. It's recommended as a street tree because it has vase-shaped branches and really attractive bark. The Kusa dogwood is considered naturalized to New York as a lovely and more disease-resistant dogwood than our native dogwoods. And Japanese maples would be excluded from this list as well. And we all love Japanese maples. Not that we do put them a lot in commercial landscapes, but we should be able to have the option to. I'm also a LEED certified professional, and I've designed landscapes for that passed LEED certified silver by using sterile and non-invasive ornamental grasses. Grasses such as the Carl Forster reed grass, morning light maiden grass, and Hamlin dwarf fountain grass. They're not native to the northeast of the United States, but they're valuable landscape grasses. They can provide beauty, erosion control, and a low maintenance space in the landscape. And the Carl Forster is widely used for its unique tall and narrow habit. Native grasses, they may not be as aesthetically pleasing, are slow to establish, could spread in manicured areas, and generally are pretty prolific seeders. Other perennials are well-known low-maintenance superstars and are not native to the northeastern United States, and that includes daylily, hostas, catmint, geranium, forest grass, sages, liriope, sedums, iris. My descriptive list continues on, and then there's even more past that. And that you would see when you go through nurseries and walk amongst all the flower options that they have and all the things that they've been coming up with the hybrids and that don't really have a native of origin, like the knockout rose. So in order to design a landscape that's low maintenance, hardy, and with plant species that can thrive in many different conditions and space limitations, and also be aesthetically pleasing and diverse, we believe that the exclusion of all non-native plant species to the northeastern United States would limit what we could do for our clients here in South Windsor. There also needs to be a balance for contractors to be able to source the materials and have the flexibility of choosing quality stock, since they will have to guarantee their survival and the client will be responsible for its ongoing maintenance. And I don't know what time of year, a lot of these landscapes and these commercial businesses will be planted, and you come to the nurseries and there might not be quality stock, and there might be substitutions for a non-native plant. So as Justin mentioned, we've had some conversations about this, and we agreed that the buffer areas in particular would be acceptable due to the limited availability of suitable evergreens. This can also apply for the smaller evergreens in manicured landscapes, like I mentioned, the Ilex crenata, around buildings and parking areas, since there are really no suitable substitutions for what some non-native evergreen species brings to the diversity of the four-season landscape. We suggest that the general landscape standards in the sections 6.2.1a and 8.7.4c remain as suitable landscaping and are to be plants that are harmonious to the design and of good appearance, respectively, and not specify the plant material to be native. That buffers and parking lot standards, sections 6.2.4 and 6.4.6, to not specifically require their native specifications, and for requirements for species to be native to the northeastern United States to be limited to detention basins, where the ecological value is at its most concerning or near sensitive areas. Though having the general landscaping standards remaining as natives being encouraged would provide the design flexibility while maintaining the ideals of the ecological value of a diverse landscape that values its native species. Which again, I do support. I do support having a lot of native species in the landscape. I think it's a really good thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll have some questions for you a little later. Okay, any other members of the public wish to comment or have questions? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to commissioners. Commissioner Kapuchinos.
So it's just saying that the primary and preferred selection of buffer plants. So it's not saying that you necessarily have to use something that's local to us here. It'd just be preferred. So it's not the only thing you can, it's just preferred to do that, correct? Is that what it's saying?
Yeah, since in the revisions, my conversation with Barb, yeah, that's been revised to, yes, the suggestion.
I'm not saying you can't put these in there.
No, right.
If you design something that looks nice, it's attractive, it's meeting the
Correct.
goals of it, we can really use.
Sure.
As long as it's not invasive and it's not gonna, go out of control anywhere, we're good.
Right, yeah, it is a lot more flexible now.
Okay, that's it.
Commissioner Baginski, Commissioner Dexter.
Your initial presentation to us was very, very exciting, that we were going to be moving toward what's native here, native in our region, in our zone. And I know we want to be flexible, we want to encourage development in town, and we don't want to be hard to deal with. But I will tell you, I'm going to keep this little list. And when I see the next site plan come through, I want to see a lot of these things and not the old-fashioned, the usual stuff that we get. So you can bring that back to your company.
Which list are you referring to?
The one that has all the pictures.
Okay, the one that's,
Yeah,
okay. Okay. Commissioner Bernstein.
Well, unfortunately, in my packet, the only thing I got was the buffers section.
I have one copy of the full amendment on me. You should have received it in, I think, your May 27th packet, if that's what you're referring to.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the,
I do have it, though.
We were asked to hang on to the,
okay. I think I missed that meeting. I'm sorry, yeah. My bad. Yeah, my only other comment, this landscape information is not a strong suit for me, but when I look at the work that Ms. Schmidt did, if we were to have something like this for the native, and this is the not native, that would be a great document maybe to post on our website and give Ms. Schmidt the credit for this part. As a former marketing executive, that's the kind of thing that I would find valuable. Other than that, everything that Michelle went over, I find to be, appropriate, and I don't have any objection to anything that's been presented.
but our zoning regulations are supposed to be ugly and dry. And you want to have all these nice pictures in there.
Well, when it comes to plants and shrubs, they can be pretty.
I think they're very nice, yeah.
Yeah.
Make them black and white.
Good. Commissioner Lettieri.
I just have a question, and I think I'm looking at the right thing. In the definition in 6.2.1, general landscape, it says plant material native to the northeastern United States, and then including whatever. When you get into buffers, you have this extra clause that says the primary and preferred selection of buffer plant species shall be native to the northeastern United States. Secondary may be plant species native to general United States, and tertiary may be non-native, non-invasive species. Wouldn't it make sense to include that in the general landscaping landscaping standards too, or I'm wrong?
We can include that in the general.
Because, I mean, it's still,
It's,
You're
yeah,
still
it
aiming
is
for the
essentially the
native.
same language, so it can be expanded to include that.
okay, I think
Yeah.
if you did that, I think it answers all of Barbara's comments, but I think it makes more sense if it's going to be in the buffers to make it okay for the landscape.
Sure.
That's my 2 cents.
So are you suggesting that we basically incorporate this list like we have with the list of native species?
No, he's not suggesting that.
He's talking about this wording here.
Wouldn't be appropriate.
Okay,
Because I'm not smart enough to know what all the plants are. I know what weeds look like. That's what I'm doing.
you mean the things in my lawn?
Yes.
Those aren't weeds, those are
Right, that I've been
dandelions?
picking out all day today, yeah, those I could recognize.
Or dead rhododendrons.
All right. Do you think we need to change what's been proposed by, and I'm talking to Schmidt, do we need to make changes to what Mr. Rousseau has already drafted, or how would we take advantage of this work that you did, which I think is
So
fascinating?
Barb did give us draft changes already that Justin kind of alluded to in the beginning. So she took our regulation and marked up where she wanted to see eliminated. And I think Justin was implying that we would be adding in the looser language in those areas. So I think, we've gotten that input from Barb that we didn't hand out because I thought that's what she was handing out to you, to be honest with you. But, she has given us marked up language that she'd like to see, and essentially to eliminating the native part. And Justin and I talked about it, we'll put in recommendation of a native, right? Not requiring it.
I thought, don't we have somewhere in here have a list of native species?
There was a list, there is a list of plants that are simply recommended, and they are native plants. But like Michelle's saying, I think by eliminating some of this language, it sort of, professionals like Barb will understand that, okay, I have carte blanche, these are my options, I know what works, I think, the revisions can be simple and,
Well, I was kind of going in the other direction of having this list here, incorporated as
In fairness to,
acceptable non-native plants.
in fairness to staff, we just seen this list for the first time too, and I don't know if Justin being a landscape architect agrees with all this. So before we say, yeah, let's incorporate it, I think maybe we have an opportunity to look at it.
I developed that list over a long period of time, working with the project I've worked in, but it's not an exclusive list, and it has nothing to do with like these large commercial businesses in the landscapes that I've been doing recently. So a lot of, there would be lots of things to add, because there's so many plants every year and so many hybrids and everything, so.
What could come out of this, Steve, Chairman, is maybe, a committee to come up with a booklet of landscaping, like a design guideline of landscaping to be supplement to the regulations, not necessarily incorporated into them.
So I'm beginning to come to the conclusion, though, that we need to see a new version of this with some of the changes you're talking about. So maybe we hold the public hearing open, see the final version.
Sure, you can do that, or if you want to just isolate the landscaping out of it, just, keep the landscaping part of it open and, finish off the rest of it. We're not under any kind of timetable. This is a PZC-sponsored amendment, so you don't have to close the hearing in any significant, time frame. It's up to you, or else we can keep everything open. I mean, it's up to how you want to move forward.
We're not in a big hurry to get this approved. Might be simpler just.
Our summer schedule is light.
It
I'd
is
like
like July 8th. I know you're not going to be here, Chairman, so I don't
Well, I
have.
will be here, but I'd rather not be.
You will be here for July 8th? I thought-
Well, I'm traveling at 6 a.m., I have a 6 a.m. flight on the 9th.
Okay. I mean, we could continue this to July 8th if you want and, you know, try to clean it up that night.
Or we could do it the following meeting.
July 22nd, I mean, we don't have a lot on July 22nd right now either, you're right.
So we know it is exactly what we're approving. And again, I guess I would think, I like the idea of pulling out a separate landscaping guide, but we need to incorporate that in the regulation somehow. If that works, is that a lot of work?
You know, I wouldn't, you know, say it's going to be adopted with this regulation, right? But you might, as a result of this, have us work on one, yeah.
I mean, I kind of like the idea that we do prioritize native species, but there's some very useful species in here. I've used a lot of these in my 2 houses. I don't see anything that wrong with using them. So some way to control the non-native species, I think is, you know, if we have, you know, right now we have an expert on the staff, but we may not always have experts on the staff. We don't have experts on the commission. So anything to help us know that something being proposed is a good idea, I think would be useful.
Sure.
I have a question.
Okay.
For Justin and for Barbara. So on this issue of native versus non-native, do we know what other towns do, how they address this situation? Is there a protocol?
I do know that the city of Newtown requires natives for their municipal properties, but not in general landscape standards. And I'd say most, I haven't looked, I haven't done a survey of all the towns, but I would say that most towns don't have this requirement because it's pretty strict. And it's about more like a natural area and not like your cultivated, manicured landscape sort of thing. I've also heard that other towns may require natives up to 80% or 75%, which I mentioned to Justin before, and he came up with that primary, secondary, tertiary idea, which is interesting.
So just so I'm clear, so when we talk about natives, native to New England, is Connecticut up to Maine? Is that kind of what we're talking about?
My recommendation was the Northeast. So it would Maine to, you know, probably going down as far as like the Appalachian range. So it wasn't so restrictive where it was just Connecticut. It was just things that were in the Northeast.
Okay.
Well, I think the other thing that could happen though is as climate change takes hold, if it hasn't already, we're going to find species that are not native to our area that start to thrive, that maybe they were working really well in Maryland.
Sure, I've seen that happen.
So yes.
I've also consulted with other professionals, and when we talk about natives, sometimes, you know, there's a very strict list when you talk about, you know, what you get from a list like a stormwater basin list of native plantings and all that. But when you say like where something comes from, like where do you draw the line? So you have the northeastern United States, and that's a line to draw, and that cuts out the Colorado blue spruce, and so that's why we were bringing some of them, why Justin was bringing them back in. But the other professionals will say, where do you draw the line when you have a hybrid that comes from Asia, or some hybrids that they don't even really have a parent of origin anymore because they've been cultivated for so long. And then there's plant species that have been naturalized here for, you know, a couple hundreds of years already. So it's hard to really say exactly where that line is. So I was just like to not be excluded.
Mm-hmm. Do we have, and not having memorized all the language, do we have language in here that says, you know, like they can't be invasive? I don't know if there are other criteria in here that
we do,
protects us.
yeah.
When somebody's picking something.
We reference the list that's put together by the Connecticut Invasive Plant Working Group, and it does clearly say the plants on this list are not to be used.
Okay, so we're not gonna get any burning bushes?
We do not allow that. That is still commercially available. A lot of nurseries do sell that for a reason that's, well, I mean, it's money, right? That's really the reason why they
And
do
that-
it, but we do not allow it, no.
That plant is a major problem in our open spaces. I've hiked
There are
around.
several, yes, there are a lot of plants. That's why they're on that list, because they are a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, we don't allow for that.
I haven't, when something goes on the invasive list in Connecticut, it's like really difficult to get in commercial, into the good commercial landscape companies. You really can't get these invasives anymore. There might be some left over from these, from like mom and pop or even like a Home Depot. But from the commercial landscapes where our landscape contractors would go to, you really can't purchase unless it's a variety. So it's like the Norway maple is an invasive tree. It's considered an invasive tree. But the Crimson King, which is a variety of the Norway maple, is not invasive. And I've had that confirmed with a professor at UConn years ago. But it would still be really frowned upon if we planted Crimson King Norway maple. So, and being invasive is just about the amount of seeds that something will propagate. And sometimes it's just traveling along, like vinca, which doesn't really have seeds that travel or whatever. It just sort of creeps along. So there's lots of different categories of what invasive is, but so you can get vinca still at a commercial landscape, but it would be considered invasive because it would take over a naturalized area, but it doesn't seed and go other places. So there's different levels of like severe invasive versus like a Japanese knotweed versus an invasive, which is just a traveler on the road.
So can we give you some guidance, or do you have any idea, what we're looking for here, or changes, or in what we've got?
Yeah, I think I know how to proceed. If it's okay with you guys, I know how to wrap this up, put it to bed.
And maybe we'll carry that public hearing over to the next regular meeting. If we don't have a meeting on the 8th, then the next regular meeting would be the 22nd, I guess. But yeah. Any other comments or concerns or desires here? Okay, so motion to carry over the public hearing would be in order.
Second.
Turn on your speaker.
I move to carry this over to the next
Continue, I
regular
guess.
meeting.
Yeah,
Still second.
okay. So any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any abstaining or opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much for your input, Barbara. Okay, and now we go on to the minutes, I think. Where's my agenda? Yes. Public participation. Oh, we have minutes next, okay. So we're going back to the regular meeting. Again, Commissioner Kupchinas has been seated, and we start with the minutes.
Motion to accept minutes by consensus.
That's kind of a contradiction in terms, but all in favor of accepting the minutes? By the way, any discussion on the minutes? I did read them online. They look fine to me. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passed unanimously. Now for public participation. Is there any member of the public who'd like to speak on a subject which is not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on. We now have the application 2526B Ticket Network Livestock Temporary Conditional Permit. Give me a second to shuffle paper here. Okay.
Good evening. My name is William Downs, Director of Facilities at Ticket Network, here to apply for a temporary livestock permit for 2 years.
Okay, and this is how many times we've done this?
Probably about 2013, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. Comments from our staff?
Yes, thank you. So this is a request for the renewal of the 2-year temporary and conditional permit for chickens, geese, and goats at the Ticket Network property at 83 Gerber Road in the industrial zone. As mentioned, we approved this originally in 2013. They've been coming back every 2 years. I believe you still have the chickens for employees to get for eggs, and it's just, they're not used on site. They are taken home. They can't be used as part of any of the product inside of the building, but there's about a 2-acre area that's dedicated down in the lower part of the, below the parking area. You wouldn't even know it was there unless you went looking for it, to be honest with you. And I don't know what your latest number of chickens are, but at one point we allowed up to 64 chickens, 2 geese and 2 goats, somewhere in that numbers, I think, depending on whether the fox get out there or not. I don't know. So the temporary conditional permit states that approval may be given after a public hearing if in the judgment of the commission, the public convenience and welfare will be substantially served, appropriate use of neighboring property will not be substantially or permanently injured, and traffic and other hazards will not result from such use. So we have not received any complaints of animals from this site, and we did notify Manchester as required, and no comments. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Our farm is pretty much, the majority of our farm is in Manchester. The section that is in South Windsor is mostly chickens. The other side, we do have llama, we have some pigs. We've continued our community outreach. We work with Timothy Edward Middle School. We do a great agricultural program. We have a few hundred students, as well as some of the staff that comes over. We donate soil, pots, and seeds. They start all of the seeds in school, and then they all come onto the farm and do an agricultural program with us, learn about the animals, and we also do programs with the Rising Stars in South Windsor, the Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts. So we do a lot with the young generation here in South Windsor.
Okay. We'll listen to comments from commissioners. I don't see anyone from the public here. Okay. It's not a public hearing, but if there was someone from the public, we would definitely listen to them. Okay.
No comment.
Mr. Bernstein.
Do the animals know if they're in South Windsor or Manchester? Is they?
They have IDs. Yeah.
No comments.
So I think this is a great, wait a minute, one more. This is a great thing. I do have a question. I mean, we've heard stories in other parts of town that pigs can get away, and I know they can actually get away and basically go wild. So how do you, even though they're in Manchester, how do you contain your pigs so they don't get away?
So we have very good surveillance on our farm. It reports back to a few of the facilities team if there's any movement. Most of the time, if an animal was to get out, it's usually one of my team that left the gate open while they're tending to another animal. All of the animals that we have either came from a family that they were in a zone that didn't allow this type of animal, or they were moving to a new town that didn't allow this type of animal. Most farm animals stay where their food is, so we don't really have, besides a free-range chicken once in a while, they stay right where they are even if the gates were open. But we do have pretty heavy surveillance on the farm. The farm itself is fenced in, and then each of the animals' areas are also fenced in. We do regular maintenance on all of our fences. I would love for you guys to come down and check out the farm someday. It's cherry season right now.
Okay. It does sound like a great program. Any other comments?
I'd like to make a motion to approve application 25-26P, Ticket Network, temporary and conditional permit for animals. This permit is to allow 64 chickens, 2 goats, and 2 geese on site, and this permit will expire in 2 years on June 24th, 2027. Will have to be renewed at that time if the use is to be continued.
Thank you all.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Passes unanimously.
I don't see our next applicant here, but I would be happy to provide the report since it is a renewal that's been around since 2002.
Yes, let's go ahead with that.
Okay, so this is a request for renewal of a 2-year temporary conditional permit for a storage tent that houses equipment at 24 Jeffrey Drive in the industrial zone. Originally, Superior Northeast was the previous owner, and they had the tent there, and then when Baylor Brothers purchased the property a couple years back, they inherited the tent, and they've kept the permit active. So it's a 30 by 60 storage tent. The reason it doesn't conform with zoning, it's in the front yard setback by about 5 or 8 feet, so that's why you handle it as a temporary conditional permit. The current owner uses for storage of equipment. They do have to check in with the building department every couple of years because temporary structures do have durations that building department does require renewal permits of that. So we typically put that as a approval condition, and they do usually check with chief building official. Again, this is a renewal that the commission can approve if the public convenience and welfare is substantially served, appropriate use of neighboring property not substantially or permanently injured, and traffic and other hazards don't result from such use. There's been no concerns expressed with this particular application.
Good. Any members of the public or anybody else? Commissioners, any comment?
Just a question, can we act on an application without an applicant here?
Sure, they submitted it and signed it. I don't know why not. We've done it in the past.
Okay.
I will put in a plug for something they did do. They did do a facade change over the last 2 years, which if Tom Baylor was here, I'd tell him to mention it, which really made a nice facade on the front of the building. So they have done some other improvements to the site.
There you go.
Anyone like to make a
All
motion?
right, so I'm going to make a motion to approve application number 25-27P, Baylor Brothers TNC Storage Tent. The temporary and conditional permit will expire on June 24th, 2027, and will have to be renewed at that time if the use is to continue. A new building permit is required to renew the temporary structure.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Passes unanimously. Okay, and we move on to, we're not ready to act on the text amendment, but we are ready to do the zone change for Pleasant Valley Road. Any further discussion on that? Since our alternate is actually seated, you can comment if you'd like. Okay. Anyone like to make a motion? Yep. We're all suffering from paper overdose.
Make a motion to approve application 2523P, zone change of 3.9 AC from A40 residential zone to general commercial zone for properties located at 235 and 245 Pleasant Valley Road. Planning and Zoning Commission finds that the zone is in conformance with the Town Plan of Conservation Development. Within 90 days by September 22, 2025, a zone change map at a scale of 1 to 40 with an A2 certification shall be filled on the land record showing all boundary lines and the acreage of the land where the zone change was granted. The map shall be drawn in accordance with the rules and regulations of the State Board of Registration for Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors and shall be stamped and signed by a licensed land surveyor. The zone change map shall be submitted on black and white Mylars. With this approval letter thereon, together with 2 paper copies and 1 digital copy of the zone change map. 3, the effective date of the zone change shall coincide with the filing of the Mylars.
Second, anybody?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Passes unanimously. We move on to readoption of the 2025 zoning map.
Yes, so just briefly, nothing has really changed about it, but there were 2 errors that we corrected. We had when the recoloring got done, general commercial zone was highlighted industrial along Sullivan Ave, so we corrected that. And then there was another error over off of Route 5, a small area. Well, I found it restricted commercial zone, I saw it industrial zone, I saw a general commercial zone. So general commercial is what it's abutting, so it's general commercial zone on this map here. The other thing that we did add, which we've never had on our zoning map before, but it is an office conversion overlay zone. When we do those, convert houses to office, we did highlight those. There's about 5 or 6 of them in town, so we did add that as a category, and those have been highlighted on the map. The one thing that we haven't done that, Steve, you and I talked about, and it's simply because of how complicated it is we have the corridor, the Buckland Road and Sullivan Ave corridor, we have an access management corridor zone, but to try to show it on this map here would get very difficult to read because we'd have to somehow do it. So we have not, we could add it to the legend and make a note along frontages of, in the legend, but I'm afraid to try to depict it on this map. I just think it would end up being it would not be effective, let's put it that way.
So does it actually coincide with one of the zones or only part of the zone, or?
I'm sorry, what now?
How does it isn't like all of any one zone, right?
No, it goes through the whole corridor, right? So it bisects all zones, yeah. It really is like the right-of-way, right? It's not even, but we did want to, be able to put out a 2025 map, so I wanted to have the commission just readopt this just so that we're, have your blessing on it, and we would be posting it on, our walls and our website and that kind of thing.
So how do you, this is very, very tiny in a lot of ways. How do you actually use it? Do you have like a full
Well, we have
C-size?
this one, it's very large, that we put on a wall. And obviously, this goes onto our website, so you can, on our GIS mapping, you can put it as a layer, then you can go really in close and look at it, very close up, or you can look at far away. So it is electronic once we get it out on our systems and whatnot.
Now, is that access zone on the GIS also?
You mean the Sullivan Ave? No, it's only referenced in the regulations.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, we could add it as something here and just make a note of it, the Sullivan Ave, Buchan Road, Access Management Corridor Zone.
Might be a good idea.
And just have it be descriptive saying that, but without having it be color-coded. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
So, I think you answered my question. This is available electronically, maybe with labels somewhere, somehow?
It's out on our website. You can go out onto the mapping that we have, and you can just click zoning map. And now, I'm going to tell you, this one probably won't get the correct one yet. So once we got to get it all these places, once we readopt it. But yes, it is available out there. Yeah. If you go to your planning and zoning, if you ever get on the web, you're bored, go to the town's website and go to planning and zoning and just start seeing, the zoning maps there, all your rules and regulations, all your plans are out there. We try to make it one-stop shopping for people looking for information. So we'll be glad to add anything you want to, if you're looking. Okay, so by consensus, you agree to the 2025 map? Okay, thank you.
With the added text?
With the added, yes, Sullivan, yep.
All right. So do we have any other bonds here? Do we have bonds? We have a bunch of bonds. Okay. Where's Alan when we need him?
see if I can read. Bond reduction release setting, IWA CC bond, 23-13P, GDS estimating stormwater, amount $10,000, reduction $10,000, balance 0. 23-13P, GDS estimating, wetlands mitigation, 15,000, reduction 10,000, balance of 5. Huh? Okay.
Okay. A second on that?
Second?
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Passes unanimously.
Landscaping bond, 18-41P, Pride Store, amount of 7,500, reduction 7,500, balance 0.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Passes unanimously. All right. And you had something you wanted to discuss here, I think?
Yeah, we do have a correspondence. Justin's going to hand it out to you, but I'll go ahead and read it. This is related to 1060 Main Street, the elderly housing project over there. And this is sent to us by Megan Hope, who is the attorney for the folks. She says, Dear Michelle, on August 17, 2021, the Planning and Zoning approved the request by UP Realty LLC for a special exception to Table 3.1A in Section 7, together with the site plan for redevelopment of the existing 31,945 square foot facility into 37 elderly apartment units at 1060 Main Street. The approval letters and Mylars were recorded in Town Clerk Maps 4549 and 4552. At the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held on July 27, 2021, the applicant indicated the elderly housing would be limited to ages 62 and over. Construction is now complete and the applicant is currently marketing the property. To ensure the continued success and the viability of the project, the applicant would like to reduce the age restriction of residents in the development from ages 62 and over to ages 55 and over. With this letter, the applicant confirms that no individuals under 18 years of age are permitted to reside in the elderly apartment units. Please do not hesitate to contact our office if any additional information is needed or required.
So bringing this up now, it's not on the agenda, so we can't act on it. But I guess the question is, this is sort of a minor site plan change which the staff often handles. On the other hand, some of us may not want to see this happen, or may want to have it brought out in a meeting. So I don't know how you're reacting to this. Anybody? I guess my concern is we've listened to presentations related to other properties where the 55 and older communities tend to attract empty nesters, people who are still in their careers. I think by putting in a 62 and over, we're more likely to serve what I would call true seniors. Okay, so I guess the question really is, do we want to leave them? You know, we can ask this question later. I don't want to answer it tonight, but I think my thinking is we probably ought to put it on the agenda as a regular meeting item, as a minor site plan change. I don't know whether you feel like there's any other issues, or just doing it, or what are you thinking?
Well, you know, just historically, your housing for the elderly is like your berry patches and, you know, Watson Farms and all those things. And those documents all are 62 and older when, you know, you look at the documents. I think from the fair housing, you had to have them 62 and older to be able to restrict no children in them. You know, there's some fair housing law around that. Those projects, when they came through the process, the Housing Authority was a party to them, as was the Housing Authority with this particular one. I don't believe there's any priority or anything giving, I mean, they would take South Windsor residents. Obviously, they're looking for South Windsor residents, but it's not anything that's income-driven. There's no any kind of affordability component to this particular project. It's a market rate project. I hear what you're saying. The 55 and older is kind of a different category than the housing for the elderly. I qualify for both, which surprised me today when I thought about it. But there may be, if you were to have the applicant come back in, you know, we'd be looking at a month from now. My understanding is they may have someone new doing the leasing, and maybe with a new leasing agent, something will change and they'll see some pickup of it. I don't know. Stephanie seems to have her hand up, so.
I will say that I did go to the grand opening and took a tour. It's a beautiful facility. They did just a wonderful job with that.
Question.
And it was a property that was, I guess, on the border of being blighted before they took over, so, yeah.
I don't personally have any problem in approving this tonight or otherwise. It's 7 years. I think we got to keep the fact it was a nursing home out of our little pea brain because, you know, that's kind of where it was. And if it helps them market those units, I think we should help them out.
I agree. I mean, so they presented 62 and over. Now they're asking 55 and over. It's 37 units. So we're talking, the impact of this is maybe 5 or 6 units. To me, that's irrelevant. If this was a 250-unit facility, maybe it's a little different. But I don't see this as relevant. I would be ready to say, okay, right now.
I think as long as they keep the no 18-year-old or under in there, I have no problem with the change. I mean, I would like to see it done tonight.
Turn on your, if you're speaking, turn on your.
I agree 100%. The idea that they're implementing no kids over the age of 18, I don't see the difference between the 55 and 62. I think it's just a quick change.
Yeah, it's not bringing kids in that you can't get, it's
So I
no
think
difference.
Kind of coming to consensus -1 of just let them go ahead with it, and you can handle that as
Well,
a
you
staff
could,
action.
you know, this is a regular meeting. You could vote to add it to the agenda and take action on it if you wanted to.
All right.
Well, you could vote to add the.
Let's
yeah.
act on it.
Yeah, add it in the,
So we need to add it to the agenda. Motion 1. With consensus, we'll add it to the agenda. Okay. And then the second thing is to actually approve this change. Is there a motion to approve the change?
Motion to approve the modification of the age restriction on 1060 Main Street, A40 zone from 62 to 55.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay.
Dig out my roll call sheet.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I know all your names. Commissioner Kapuchinos. Commissioner Bugansky. Yes. Commissioner Dexter.
Aye.
Commissioner Bernstein.
Aye.
Commissioner Viteri. Mr. Chair.
No. Passes.
5 yeses and 1 no. Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
Just to remind you of a couple of training, or one training opportunity that's coming up twice. I think I emailed you about this. July 16th at 10 a.m. and July 24th at 5 p.m. 2 different in-person sessions of a Fundamentals of Site Plan Review workshop being offered in Haddam, Connecticut. That translates to, counts for 2 of your training hours as required by CGS 8-4. I'll send out another email to remind you.
And Joshua, how many do we need in a year? How many hours do we need?
Total is 4, and 1 of those has to be about pertaining to affordable.
Okay,
So.
thank you.
so the only other thing I have is you do have an application that you got a little sheet on tonight for Electromethods. That is for a very small addition on the front of their building, 2,000 square feet, and they have requested a staff level approval under 8.6, which does allow a certain threshold of small buildings to be deferred to staff. So it's kind of, they're hoping to get moving on the project fairly quickly to make a conference room there is what their goal is. So if you're good with that, we'll handle it at the staff level.
You don't see any issues with the,
No, there's
okay, so why don't we
nothing
handle
of
it
any.
at staff level?
It's going to only improve the site. It's going to make a nicer looking building out of it.
Okay, you're gonna handle it at the staff level,
We'll hand it to staff level. If anybody'd like to see it, I do have it here.
okay.
And that's it from the planning department.
Where's Kevin when we need him?
I don't know.
He's supposed to move to adjourn, okay.
Move to adjourn?
Third.
All in favor? Aye. Passes unanimously.